I've been introduced. Thanks for the opportunity. Before I get started, I wanted to thank Sheila and other organizers. It's been personally a great opportunity for me to hear your stories from the ground. Before joining the Policy Bureau, I was a field practitioner, so it's very refreshing to come together and meet colleagues from the field and hear your stories. So I was told to talk a little bit about the global processes that are coming up in the next year, particularly the Sustainable Energy for All and Rio+20. I won't go into detail with Rio+20 because I think Gail will talk about that, so I'll focus more on the energy side of things. So it was mentioned previously that there's a growing momentum in the area of energy, and particularly in terms of addressing the energy needs of the poor, of the vulnerable, of the most marginalized people in our society, which links closely to our work in gender equality and women empowerment. So just to highlight a few events that have led up to this growing momentum. In 2010, the Secretary General put together an advisory group on energy and climate change. This advisory group came up with a report, Energy for Sustainable Future, and in this report there was a set of recommendations mainly focused on highlighting the importance of energy access and energy efficiency. Same year, September 2010, the NDG Summit highlighted energy as a key factor for achieving Millennium Development Goals. This was also mentioned yesterday, that there has never been a goal on NDGs, but it is recognized and there's no doubt that none of the NDGs can be achieved without energy. Same year, December 2010, the UN General Assembly passed a resolution that declares 2012 as the International Year for Sustainable Energy for All. I'll talk about that briefly after. And more recently, September 2011, the Secretary General has launched an initiative, the Sustainable Energy for All initiative, which has a high-level action group. I will talk about that later as well. Now, Rio+20 has been mentioned multiple times, the importance of climate change and linking that to energy. From the climate change with gender, linking that to energy, there will be a thematic session on energy in Rio+20. As you know, two main themes are going to be discussed in Rio+20, green economy and institutional framework on sustainable development. So a colleague mentioned yesterday that in the global arena, sustainable development had fallen off from the agenda, but we see that with Rio+20 is getting back into the agenda and another opportunity to highlight gender concerns in the three pillars of sustainable development. During the Rio+20, there are going to be days some events organized by UN Energy called the Energy Days to sort of provide an opportunity for a more in-depth discussion on energy issues linked with Rio+20. So a little bit of background on the year. The year is basically originated from the resolution. The idea is to raise awareness and mobilize different actors around the importance of three main areas in energy: energy access, energy efficiency, and renewable energies. The year will be officially launched in January 2012 at the World Future Energy Summit, which will be held in Abu Dhabi. And following that first launch, there will be a series of regional launches in different continents. And results from the year will be sort of highlighted in the next General Assembly in September 2012. Just to keep in mind, the year is a one-year process, whereas the SG's initiative is a long-term planning for achieving sustainable energy for all. So the initiative is mainly to highlight the importance of achieving sustainable energy for all by 2030 through three main goals: achieving universal access to modern energy services, doubling the rate of improvement in energy efficiency, and doubling the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix. So the year, 1 year, the SG, long-term process. There's always confusion about that. So how does the SG's initiative try to achieve that? And tries to do so by bringing the different actors together, including civil society partners, including private sector, including national governments, and including different multilateral and bilateral donors. And it tries to bring these three goals to the forefront of discussions and to the top level of the international agenda. And leading up to Rio, there are a series of activities planned both globally and at the national level. At the national level, commitments and action plans are sought from the different actors. They will be presented in Rio. And the initiative also looks into implementing different mechanisms on the ground through establishing national coordinating mechanisms and private-public partnerships. It also looks into innovative financing mechanisms to bridge the gap between the 3 energy goals and finance. And it also aims to provide an accountability and performance measurement tool to sort of track commitments and progress towards commitments in the 3 areas mentioned. So a little bit of information, the high-level group has the mandate of coming up with an action plan that will be presented in Rio +20. The action plan will have concrete priority areas and commitments, and will basically present the tracking mechanism that will be established as part of the SDGs initiative. The year is a platform used to sort of feed into the SDGs initiative. There will be global advocacy and communication activities around the 3 goals. UN Foundations is heavily involved with that. At the national level, advocacy, communication, and supporting national actors in coming up with commitments and action agendas is something that UNDP has taken on. There are different collaborating bodies and initiatives that are engaged in the SDGs initiative. Some of them have already been mentioned during the past 2 days, including Energy for All from the Asian Development Bank, Working Africa, Energy for the Poor, Energy Plus, and so just that really highlights how these different initiatives and different partners are coming together under the same umbrella to provide a more collaborative approach to achieving these goals. So this is basically the link to how do we go from these global processes and how do we link what's happening at the local level, both on the energy side and the gender side, to the global processes. I've highlighted a number of points here. I'm not going to go through in detail, but these are examples from UNDP's approach to doing this. So, for example, at the global level, the high-level group has different task forces, and action plans to arrive at universal access for energy is one of the task forces. And our administrator, Helen Croft, who is the first female administrator of the organization, is leading this task force. And that could be closely linked to gender equality and women empowerment, as is closely linked to energy access issues. Again, on the national level, advocacy, awareness raising, and bringing actors together to commit themselves to these goals is something that UNDP is pursuing, and they will be linked to gender responsive policies and programmings. On the climate side, there's different examples. Some of them we have already mentioned today. For example, collaboration between SREP and integration of gender equality principles into Clean Technology Fund. That's something that UNDP has pursued. Capacity development activities with governments and national actors on various linkages between climate, gender, and energy issues. ENERGIA has been a partner of us in that area, and we have already heard an example from Cambodia that my colleague Rajan talked about earlier today. And we've also developed different tools and sort of practices to mainstream energy into our own internal UNDP programming and operations. So, since the topic was where do we go from here, I sort of thought about what we discussed during the past 2 days and how do we link what we have done in this group or what we do on the ground as a collective, and how do we link it to the global processes. So one thing that I wanted to mention and highlight is that these global processes, including Rio +20, including Sustainable Energy for All, post-NVG framework, all of these should be looked at as a strategic platform to advocate our cause and to make the case for the linkages between energy and gender and energy, gender and climate change, gender and sustainable development. So key messages that we can advocate, some of them reflect what we have discussed during the past 2 days. Perhaps I'm missing some, and perhaps some could be added. But on the programming side, engendering programs at all levels. empowering women and communities through gender-responsive adaptation and mitigation policies. This is something that was mentioned. Looking at women as entrepreneurs, women as drivers for economic development, women and financing. How can we put that together as a key message and provide that to the global processes? Drawing up on perspectives on women and men to inform the different actions, different commitments, and different processes that are going to be presented at the global level. Meaningful participation of women and men through legal and political empowerment. This was something that was brought up yesterday. For example, the aspect of land ownership or women not, women not applying for high-level positions in the political era. Also, enabling greater progress through collaboration and coordination between different actors, including government, civil society, and private sector. Our colleague from Kenya mentioned the SREP example and how coordination and collaboration was important in that case. So that can be highlighted as a key message. And finally, assessing our progress, assessing how gender equality and women empowerment is integrated into our programming and policies, and how do we monitor and evaluate our results. In line with that, another thing that I wanted to mention in terms of linking what we do at the local level to the global issues is also something that was brought up, the importance of information and knowledge sharing. What we do on the ground, the lessons, the challenges are extremely important in terms of informing policymakers and decision-making processes at the global level. So how can we, as practitioners, make sure there's a mechanism that we can bring the lessons learned from the ground and put them together as a package that could be advocated and that could be fed up to the processes on the top. So for that, I highlighted 3 questions that we can sort of, that I want to end with as 3 areas that I've captured, from my opinion, the discussions that we've had here during the past 2 days. So what are the examples that we have shared together in terms of how actors ensure that energy issues are addressed within and across the 3 pillars of sustainable development, social, economic, and environmental. How to ensure that global, regional, and national policies prioritize and synergize energy equality and women empowerment, along with a cleaner, a more resilient, a more inclusive energy future. We have heard many examples in that case in the past 2 days. And capacity development is another important aspect that was highlighted multiple times during the 2 days. How do we strengthen the capacity of ourselves, of our partners, of the different stakeholders involved, and make sure that women and men contribute equally as we move towards a more sustainable development paradigm. That's it.
Yeah.